Hello, so this video is about the JavaScript fundamentals. So it is about the JavaScript, that is the language itself. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is about the script tag. So first we are going to create a file, and we are going to create an HTML file. So we need an HTML. This is the HTML opening tag. This is the HTML closing tag. This is my body tag and closing body tag. So now I'm going to show you what the script tag. So JavaScript programs can be inserted almost anywhere into an HTML document using the script tag. Okay, so here I have created a script tag, and this is the ending of a script tag. So I'm going to type alert. Okay, so this is a very basic example, and now I'm going to save my HTML file. So just hello, and make sure that your HTML file extension is .html. Because we need to run it in a web browser. So I'm going to save this file as an HTML document, and now browse to the location where you have saved the file. Click on it and open it with any web browser. I'm going to open it with Edge, and here, as you can see, that our HTML document is working. This is my alert that creates a dialog box, and this was my data, that is hello world. So this is the basic functioning of a script tag, and the script tag contains JavaScript code which is automatically executed. The browser processes the tag. So now I'm going to take you to the next part. That is the code structure, and the first thing that I will tell you is the building blocks of code. So the first one is the statements, and statements are syntax constructed and commands that perform actions. And we have already seen a statement that is alert, as we can see right over there. See, this is also a statement, and this shows message hello world. And so we can have as many statements in our code as we want, and statements can be separated with a semicolon. Okay, so now if we want to split the hello world into two alerts, what we're going to do is create another alert statement, and I'm just going to remove this so it's easier to understand and differentiable. Okay, so now this will create two alerts. Let's see it. Refresh and see, the first alert is of hello and the second alert is of world. So this is how you can separate alerts. And now usually the statements are written on separate lines to make code more readable. It's like this, and semicolon, and a semicolon will be omitted in most cases when a line break exists. So it means that if we remove semicolons over here, this program will still work, as first let me show you. Refresh. See, earlier hello is our first statement execution. This is our second statement execution. See, it works. And here JavaScript interprets the line break as an implicit semicolon, and this is called as automatic semicolon insertion. And in most cases, a new line implies a semicolon. As here, as you can see, this is a new line, so it implies a semicolon, but it does not mean that it always does. For example, I'm going to show you an example. So let's see if I type 3 plus plus 2. Okay, so as you can see here, I have changed the lines of the semicolon. Let's see if it works differently or as it works as a single program. Okay. So here, as you can see, that the output is 6. So this is because JavaScript does not insert semicolons here. It is intuitively obvious that if a line ends with a plus, then it is an incomplete expression. So a semicolon there would be incorrect, and in this case that was as intended. But there are situations where JavaScript fails to assume a semicolon where it is really needed. So let me show you an example. So first I'm going to show you a normal statement. So here is an alert of hello, and here I use a semicolon, and now this is a for each statement. Alert, and this is my second statement. Okay, so this should work. Let's see, this is my first statement, this is my second, and this is my third. So it was perfectly fine. So now let's see what will happen if we remove a semicolon here. So as you can see that I have removed a semicolon here, but the line is changed. So these should be treated as different statements. But when we run it, it says hello. See, now only the first statement got executed, not the second one as we saw earlier, 1 and 2. So that is because JavaScript does not assume a semicolon before square brackets. So now as you can see here, these are square brackets, and JavaScript does not assume a semicolon before these. So the code in this example is treated as a single statement. So the computer sees this code something like this. And now let's go to another topic, that is comments. So now as time goes on, programs become more and more complex. It becomes necessary to add comments which describe what the code does and why. And comments can be put into any place of a script. They don't affect its execution because the engine simply ignores them. And one line comment starts with 2 / characters. The rest of the line is comment. It may occupy a full line of its own or a full statement. So for example, there are 2 /. I'm going to write something. This comment occupies a line. Okay. And I'm going to add another comment. So after this, adding another comment here that this comment follows statement. Okay, so here we can see that this one is in a line and this one is after a statement. So let's try to run it and let's see what happens. As you can see, it shows hello. Okay, I forgot to save it. Okay, so I saved it and let's see, it says hello in 1 and 2. See, anything that I wrote in the comment does not appear in our program. And we can also add multi-line comments. And multi-line comment, to add a multi-line comment, all we need to do is use a forward slash and an asterisk for starting, and to end a multi-line comment, we need an asterisk and a forward slash. This is to end a multi-line comment. So let's try it out. See, the program works perfectly fine and anything that I wrote there was omitted. So sometimes it can be handy to temporarily disassemble part of code. So for example, if I want to disable like alert hello, then simply comment it out. Reload it and see, hello is now printed over here. That part is being omitted and only the second part of my code is working. So the next topic is data types, and value in JavaScript is always of a certain type, for example a string or a number, and there are 8 basic types in JavaScript. Here we will cover them in general and we will talk about each of them in detail. And we can put any type in a variable. For example, a variable at one moment can be string and then store a number. So for example, if I take a variable so as we can see that this is a string type variable, and here I am entering numbers. So this is valid because first a variable can store string value. So this is, and next it can also store number values. So programming languages that allow such things such as JavaScript are called dynamically typed, meaning that there exist data types but variables are not bound to any of them. And the second one is number. So for example, so let's take a variable named n, and it can have 1, 2, 3 and so the number type represents both integer and floating point numbers, and there are many operations for numbers, example multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and so on. And besides regular numbers, there are so-called special numeric values which also belong to this data type, that is infinity, minus infinity, and n. And so the infinity one is infinity represents the mathematical infinity. It is a special value that's greater than any number, and we can get it as a result of division by 0. So let me show you. Alert. So we know that 1 divided by 0 is infinity. So save it and see. So it doesn't show us 1 by 0, rather it shows us infinity. And the second one is NaN, and that is a not number, and it represents a NaN represents a computational error, and it is a result of an incorrect or an undefined mathematical operation. So for example, if I type here n divided by 2, so as you can see that n is not number, and it says n, it's not a number. So NaN is sticky. Any further mathematical operations on NaN returns NaN. So if we don't have any number in the operation, it will always show NaN. So if there's an NaN somewhere in a mathematical expression, it propagates to the whole result. So there's only one exception to that. That is NaN into 0. It is 1. So the next one is big int. And in JavaScript, the number type cannot represent integer values larger than 2 to the power 53 minus 1. So it's technical limitation caused by their internal implementation. So for most purposes, that's quite enough, but sometimes we need really big numbers, example for cryptography or microsecond precision timestamps. And big int type was recently added to the language to represent integers of arbitrary length. And a big int value is created by appending n to the end of an integer. So let's say this is one number, and if I add n at the end, now it becomes big int. So as big int numbers are rarely needed, we don't cover them. So big int numbers are not these are rarely needed. So the next one is string. So a string in JavaScript must be surrounded by quotes. And in JavaScript there are 3 types of quotes. I will show you each one of them. Let's say this one is the first string. This is hello. And second one is 2. And this one is B. So these are the 3 types that we can represent our string. So double and single quotes are simple quotes, and they have practically no difference between them in JavaScript. And backsticks are external functionality quotes. They allow us to embed variables and expressions into a string by wrapping them in $signs. So to give you an example, will select this not LST. For example, let me equals to from non-static hello. So this is how we embed the expression, and it is evaluated and the result becomes a part of the string, and we can put anything there. So as we say, put a variable like name or an arithmetic expression like interest to or something more complex. So let's see if it works. So we can see here it says hello and name, that is wrong. The second one is the result is 3. As you can see, it was 1 plus 2. So the next one is Boolean, that is logical type, and the Boolean type has only 2 values, true and false. So this type is commonly used to store yes or no values, and true means yes, correct, and false means no, incorrect. So for example, let's say and I can set it as true, false. So Boolean values also come as a result of comparisons. So for example, let's say is greater so now let's save it and run it. So we can see that the answer is true. Well, because 4 is greater than 2, so the answer is true. So the Boolean expression only says true or false as well. So now let's go to the next one, is the null value, and the special null value does not belong to any of the types described earlier. So it forms a separate type of its own which contains only the null value. So how does it work? Let age equals to. So in JavaScript, null is not a reference to a non-existing object or a non-pointer like in some other language. It's just a special value which represents nothing, empty, or value unknown. So here that we have written age is null, so this represents that this states that age is unknown. And the next one is the undefined value, and the special value undefined also stands apart and it makes a type of its own, just like null. And the meaning of undefined is value is not assigned. So if a variable is declared but not assigned, then its value is undefined. So for example, let let's see if it says undefined because there is nothing stored in each variable. So technically it is possible to explicitly assign undefined to a character. So but we don't recommend doing that, so because normally no one uses null to assign an empty or unknown value to a variable, while undefined is reserved as a default initial value for unassigned things. And the next one is objects and symbols. The next one that we are going to see is interaction, that are alert, prompt, and confirm. So as we will be using the browser as a demo environment, so let's say a couple of functions to interact with the user. The first one is alert, so this one we have already seen, and it shows a message and waits for the user to press OK. And the example we have already seen. Okay. So the menu window with the message. So this menu window with the message is called a model window, and the word model means that the visitor can't interact with the rest of the page and press other buttons etc. until they have dealt with this window, and in this case until they have pressed OK, like this. The second one is the prompt function, and the function prompt accepts two arguments. Let me show you, give you an example. To prompt title here, so it shows a model window with a text message and input field for visitor and the buttons OK or cancel. So the title, the text shows to the visitor, and the visitor can type something in the prompt input field and press OK, then we get that text in the result, or they can cancel the input by pressing cancel or hitting the escape key, then we get null as a result, and the call to prompt returns the text from the input field or null if the input was cancelled. So for example, I'll show you an example. So this is an example. So let's save it and let's try to run it. See here, we get an input field as we can see, and we can input any number here, and it will be shown in the next window. And the next one is the confirm. So I will give you an example. Let's say is the and we can set another. Let's save it and let's check. See, are the box okay or cancel? If you press cancel, the page says false, and if it says okay, it says true. This is the use of confirm. Next one is type conversion. So most of the time operators and functions automatically convert the values given to them to the right type. For example, alert automatically converts any value to the string to show it, and mathematical operations convert values to numbers. There are also cases when we need to specifically convert a value to the expected type. So first one is string conversion. So string conversion happens when we need the string form of value. For example, alert value does it to show the value, and we can also call the string value function to convert a value to a string. So for example, let value this is Boolean, and value string value. So now value is a string, that is true. Alert. Okay. Value. So this is a string. So let's check it out. So see, it was Boolean and the next one was string. So string conversion is mostly obvious, and a false becomes false, null becomes null, etc. So now next one is numeric conversion, and numeric conversion happens in mathematical functions and expressions automatically. For example, when division is applied to non-numbers. So for example, let's say alert. See, when you put anything in between these, then they are treated as a string and not number. So this means strings are converted to numbers. And we can use the number value function explicitly. But first let me show you how this works. See, it says 6. So now let me show you another example. Let str this is string, so this is number, and here number becomes a number 23. Here it becomes number 23. See, and then it becomes a string. So explicitly conversion is usually required when we read a value from a string-based source like a text form, but expect a number to get there. And if the string is not a valid number, the result of such a conversion is an AND. For example, let age equals number advertised. Okay, let's work. Let's save it. Let's see. See to the it shows an AND. Now the next is Boolean conversion, and the Boolean conversion is the simplest. Boolean conversion is the simplest one. It happens in logical operations. Later we made condition test, but it can also be performed explicitly with a call to Boolean value, and other values become true. So for instance, for an example, let's hello Boolean 1 here it is true, now it is false. This is true, and this one should show false. So we should get 4 dialog boxes. See, the first one is true, the second one was false, third one is true, and the next one is false. So the next topic is basic operator of math. So we know many operators from school, and there are things like addition, multiplication, subtraction, and so on. So there are 3 different terms that we use. First one is unary, second is binary, and third one is operand. So before we move on, let me tell you something about an operand. So an operand is what operators are applied to. For instance, in the multiplication of 5 into 2, there are 2 operands. The left operand is 5 and the right operand is 2. So for example, if I write something like here, I write 5 into 2. So 5. So the 5 is the left operand and 2 is the right. 5 is the left operand and 2 is the right operand. So sometimes people call these arguments instead of operands. And an operator is unary if it has a single operand. So for example, the unary negation reverses the sign of the number. So for example, right, minus 2. So here it is. An operator is binary and if it has 2 operands. the same minus exists in binary form as well. So we already know about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, so I will tell you about the important ones like the remainder. So the remainder operator that is used by the percentage sign, and despite its appearance is not related to percent. So the result of a percentage b is a remainder of the integer division of a by b. So for example, percentage. Okay, so here that's done it. So here you can see that the answer is 1. This is because then 5 to divide by 2, the remainder is 1. And the second one is 2 because when we divide 8 by 3, the remainder is 2. And the next one is exponential. So the exponential operator is denoted by 2 multiplication signs, just like this. So this means 5 to the power of 2. So just like in math, the function operator is defined for non-integer numbers as well. For example, like 5 raised to the power 1 by 2. 1 by 22, this will also work. So for example, if we need a square root, so we can simply say 5 raised to the power 1 by 2, it will give us the square root. And if we say 1 by 3, it will give us the cube root. So the next one is string concatenation with binary plus. So let's meet features of JavaScript operators that are beyond school arithmetic. So usually the plus operator sums numbers, but if the binary plus is applied to strings, it merges, that is concatenates them. So for example, say that s is equals to my string. So now let's try to run it and see. It has been merged together, and the my and string are treated as a one string. So if any of the operands is a string, then the other one is converted to a string too. So it doesn't matter whether the first operand is a string or the second one. So let me show you a more complex example. Let's say alert, I'll say 2 plus 2 plus 1 over here. Okay, so let's see the result. It is 41. Okay, and not 220 and not 221. This is because it treats this value as a string. Okay, so it treats this value as a string, and this is usual addition. So the next one is numeric conversion, unary. So the plus symbol exists in two forms: the binary form that we just used right now, and the second one is the unary form. So the unary plus, or in other words, the plus operator applied to a single value doesn't do anything to numbers, but if operand is not a number, the unary plus converts it into a number. So for example, let's say okay, that equals to 1 alert plus okay, and then let's say that I is equals to -2 and plus 1. Let's say alert plus 2. You can also convert non-numbers also. I will show you in this example. Okay, so now let's see the result. See, it doesn't have any effect here, and it shows -2, and see, I wrote true, so it converted into 1, and I left a blank, so it's 0. So 2 was 1, and 1, see, this gives value 1 and this is value 0. So it actually does the same thing as number, but it is shorter. So the need to convert strings to numbers arises very often. So for example, if we are getting values from HTML form fields and they will be strings, so what if you want to sum them? So the binary plus would add them strings, and if you want to treat them as numbers, we need to convert and then sum them. So the next one is assignment operator. So let's note that an assignment is also an operator, and see, this is my assignment operator. This means that I'm assigning value 1 to x. So this was about the assignment operator, and now I'm going to show you about the increment and decrement. So increasing or decreasing a number by 1 is among the most common numerical operations. So let me show you how it's done. So I'm going to use that to plus plus alert counter. So you have assigned value to the counter. Keep it in mind. Let's just see, it shows us 3. This means that our initial value was incremented by 1. And same goes by decrement. If I say counter minus minus, it will show us value 1. See, our initial value was 2 and it decremented it by 1. This is about the increment and decrement. The next one is comparisons. So we know many comparison operators from maths. In JavaScript they are written like greater, less, or less than. Let me show you. So greater than, and this is less than operator. So I'm going to tell you about the comparisons and how JavaScript makes them, including important peculiarities. So Boolean is the result, and all comparison operators returns a Boolean value. True means yes, and false means no. So for example, let's say so this that 2 is greater than 1. Then add 2 is equal to 1. And that check returns 2 is not equal to 1. So let's see. It shows 2 because 2 is greater than 1. It shows false because 2 is not equal to 1. And it says true because 2 is not equal to 1. See, 2 is greater than 1, that was true. And 2 is not equal to 1. And here is 2 is not equal to 1, so it was true. So comparison result can be assigned to a variable just like any value. So for example, let equals to 5 is greater than 4, and I type this. So answer should be true, and it is true. So now string, I want to tell you about string comparison. So to see whether a string is greater than other, JavaScript uses a so-called dictionary or lexicographical order, and in other words, strings are compared letter by letter. So let me show you. Okay. Let's say Z. Is greater than and then is greater than is greater than. So in all those examples, so true, true, and true. So the algorithm to compare two strings is simple. That means it compares the first character of both strings, and if the first character from the first string is greater or less than the other string. So if the first character from the first string is greater than the other string, then the first string is greater. Otherwise, if the both strings first character are same, compare to the second character the same way, and repeat until the end of the string. And if both strings end at the same length, then they are equal. Otherwise, the longer string is greater. So this is how comparison is done. And now I'm going to show you comparison between different types. So let me just show you. So let's check if a string 2 is greater than the neural value of 1, numerical value. And 0 is equal to this. So it's true and true. So from Boolean values 2 becomes 1 and 1 becomes 0. So now we will tell you about strict equality. So a regular equality check. See, this is a regular equality check. Has problem and it cannot differentiate 0 from false. So 0 equal to false, which is true. And the same thing happens with an empty string. Which is true. So this happens because the operands of different types are converted to numbers by the equality operator, and empty string just like false becomes a 0. So we need a strict equality operator that checks the equality without type conversion. So now for a strict equality conversion we need equal to size. This strict equality converter. Now let's check it. And it says here false. See, earlier with the comparison it's set true. So now the comparison. So there is also a strict non-equality operator, and the strict equality operator is a bit longer to write but makes it obvious what's going on and leaves less room for errors. Comparison between with the null and undefined. So let me show you comparison. Let's say I write null is equals to undefined, and I also write null equal to undefined. So the first value should be false and the second value should be true, because we use a strict equality check for the first one and we use a equality check for the second one. So now let's check null versus 0. So is null greater than 0 or null is equal to 0? Or null is greater than equal to 0. So the first one should be false. Just the same as it also false. The last one should be true. See, now this is because mathematically that's strange, because the last result states that null is greater than or equal to 0. So in one of the comparisons above it must be true, but they are both false. So the reason is that an equality check and comparisons work differently. Comparisons convert null to a number, treating it as 0. That's why null is greater than or equal to 0 is true, and null greater than is 0 is false. So on the other hand, the equality check for undefined and null is defined so that without any conversions, they equal each other and don't equal anything else. That's why null is equals to 0 is false.